Hello. Welcome to Track Talk Live with the Model Railroad Academy. I'm Leah. I'm going to be your moderator today, and I am here with Doug Hodgdon, Mr. Clickety, if you will.
Nope. Gotta turn it.
We're ready for questions and answers. Doug has some really great content, some pictures, some little tips and tricks. There we go.
Some of those
tips
too,
and
yeah.
tricks,
All of those.
whatever he's got.
All of the above.
We're going to be sharing those with you throughout the Q&A series here today. But first, a very, very special announcement. We have a brand new Model Railroad Academy community layout gallery, and we want to see your layout. That is going to be found, if you're watching on the website, right below the chat roll box. There's a banner that you can click on and add your own layout picture. Also, if you're watching on Facebook, that link is in the description for you to click on. We would love to see. There's a few photos in there already that you can take a look at, add your own, and hopefully we'll be adding some throughout the hour and continue building this gallery.
Perfect.
So go ahead and click that banner, add your photo, and join us for the rest.
I like it.
What are we starting out with first? Do you think we got a video to start with, Doug?
Well, I thought we were going to talk about what have I been doing. Is that what we're doing first? What have I been doing since the last show?
Well,
or do you want to do that? We can do that.
I think we've got a video clip and then some photos to share after the video.
Fine.
What is this video going to be for?
Oh.
What do we got?
Oh, this is a surprise. Okay, this is a surprise to us, too. Yeah, this is a surprise video. This is our secret weapon that we developed for taking engineer eye view photographs of model railroads. And this particular layout right here is Bill Briggs' layout out here in Minnetonka, Minnesota, not too far away. And we're just giving you a few quick glances of what we can do with this camera. It's a high definition camera.
Awesome.
And I'll show you a little bit of how we put this together. But this is the high bridge on Bill Briggs' layout. So we're going under the Vortex high bridge, and then we're going to go around the loop, and we're not going to show the whole thing, around the loop, and here we are going over the high bridge. So the track actually curls around and goes over the top of itself. It's sort of based on the Tehachapi Loop out in California.
And you're getting this footage right from the model train, yes?
Yeah, and the train that we're going over is the rear end of the train that we're pulling here. And so the train actually wraps over the top of itself.
Great, and so you're getting a lot of detail here from spaces that maybe ordinarily you wouldn't be able to see, right?
Well, that's the cool thing. It's a viewing angle you would normally not see, and it's the realistic viewing angle. It's the engineer's eye level, as if you're in the cab with a locomotive, looking out. So yeah, and here's another layout, Greg Smith layout down in Apple Valley.
Oh, wow.
But you see, just the very front end of the camera car there kind of gives you a little perspective on what it is. So we put the camera car in the front of the locomotive.
Perfect.
And the locomotive pushes it.
Oh, that's really exciting. And I do think that you brought kind of a little sneak peek into the making of that car.
I hate to give away the secret, but I guess, we'll do it here when we're done with the clip. Now, this is the Newport Model Railroad Club.
Yes.
Down south of St. Paul, Minnesota. So we got a quick clip of that too. And we've had other stuff in the can that hasn't been edited yet.
Oh,
so
wow.
we'll do more of this. This was kind of a practice run to make sure everything was working well. But it's, like I say, it's a high definition camera, and it really gives you perspective on your scenery. I mean, it gives you a view where maybe you want to improve your scenery. You might see an angle you hadn't seen before, and things you can do better or improve. So anyway, I think it's really cool.
It is. Moving through those tunnels, that's really neat.
Mm-hmm. It is cool. Yeah.
All right, well, let's pull out some of those little pieces that you used.
Well, this is our secret weapon right here, the camera
clear
car. Now,
space.
We also, we've talked about how we like to make things, model railroaders like to make things free.
Yes.
Parts, and so basically this camera car didn't cost me anything.
Ooh, free 99. My favorite price.
Not even that. I had this, actually I started out with an Athearn HO scale boxcar frame, and we tried the camera. I'm going to show you the camera here. We tried the camera on the flat car frame and it was too high. It would hit the top of the tunnels and so on. And so I had to make basically a depressed center car, which means that the center is dropped down lower. So the camera actually rides, the bottom of the camera just rides a tiny bit above the rail surface.
All right.
So the camera actually, I made this so the camera would just sort of press fit down into the car, like so. And let me turn this so you can see the lens. So you push this with the Locomotive, the camera is stable because it's kind of wedged into the sides of the car, so it gives you a nice jiggle-free view, and then just wait there too, so it stays on the track well. I thought it was pretty cool.
Perfect. The secret weapon.
No,
This is it.
Yeah, it is pretty cool, huh? And then this is actually the little gizmo that comes with it. It's a little, like a watch.
Oh.
But this camera is also Bluetooth. So
Very
not only
fancy.
there's a CF chip in there.
Okay.
So it records it on the chip. But then also, if you can see let me see here, see the screen, you can actually turn the camera on and off from here, and you can actually see it live on this little screen.
As it
Isn't
feeds
that
through.
amazing?
That's really great.
And so what we're going to do is I've got other HO layouts I want to do with this car, and then other scales too. I mean, the bigger scales, you don't need a fancy camera car because, there's more room to work with. But anyway, we want to put some miles on this car, take it out to some of the model railroads, and show you examples of different types of scenery.
That would be perfect. I love it.
Isn't that exciting?
That's really great.
And for not the camera, but the car is free.
Oh, the camera wasn't free? Darn. I was hoping maybe that was included as well.
Okay, now what are we doing now? You're going to ask me what I was doing since the last show.
I do think you've got some photos for us, a little bit of fun updates on where you've been.
I'm just going to do a quick shameless plug for a friend of mine. I was telling you, my wife and I were over at the Minnesota State Fair.
Yes.
And we saw Hall & Oates.
Yes.
Which, it's kind of my generation. I remember when their first album came out, Abandoned Luncheonette.
Oh.
That was in, I think, the early 70s.
Here they are, Minnesota State Fair.
I have to remember. Anyway, but a friend of mine, John Cartwright, who is a railroad artist, has a booth at the fair every year, and I go over and say hi to him every year. And I just wanted to show you this because he is just a fabulous artist and does this kind of stuff. He specializes in depots.
Perfect.
So, and his website is artrail.com. Well, you can look him up if you're interested in something, but really neat guy. And he'll do it kind of a pencil rendering like this, or ink rendering, I guess it is, and he'll color them too, if you like. So, anyway, so that's the plug.
And if you're going to the Minnesota State Fair, maybe you could find his booth.
Yeah, he'll be there, I'm sure. All right, so I get these crazy ideas. Well, we're going to see the pictures, but I went to the St. Louis RPM meet here a few weeks ago, and I love these RPM meets because I get really inspired. There's some of the best modelers ever there, and you'll see some pictures. But I got inspired, so we're going to show you just some crazy little things that I have been doing. Here, hang on to those for a second.
Oh.
Okay, now
Take good care of them.
let me show you this now. I have this. This is a German. It's called a grass mat, and it's just it would look kind of hokey if you did your whole layout with this, but I use little pieces of it for clumps of weeds. If you can kind of get it's textured, sort of like a carpet. Can you see the texture there? Well, and I wanted to make some tall weeds on my layout, and you can't really buy anything that factory made to give you tall weeds, and so I got thinking, let me see, how can I do this? So. Free stuff, laying around. I'm looking around my workshop, and I had a little scrap of this mat, and I had an old used paintbrush that had some stain on it, actually. So I glued, let me see if we can get a good shot of this. I glued the paintbrush with some white glue down to the mat, and then, of course, there's enough tooth kind of in that mat so that the glue will stick. So I put white glue on the end of the paintbrush, and I just leaned it up against a couple of bottles or something and hold it up like this straight until the glue dried.
Right.
So that gave me this, which is the paintbrush stuck to the grass mat. then...
And that's it, right?
Well,
You're
that's
just
right.
going to put the paintbrush up on the model?
Well, it could. It could. I mean, you know, like a paintbrush factory or something. It could be
Exactly.
something outside. Well, anyway, so here's what I do, and I'm going to show you this now. If we get it, so you can. Let me see how you can see this. Anyway, I cut it off right about here at the end of the brush. You know, these are cheap throwaway brushes anyway. So I cut it off like that, and then this part is just throwaway.
All right.
And then I have, so then I have this, and this looks like a clump of tall grass, and you can kind of, let me get it here now, you can see it good. You kind of spread it out, so it looks like tall weeds, but it's a little bit too perfect because it's flat on the top, you know. So I want to take, I use my little cuticle scissors like this that I have, see. And I just go in there and I just clip little bits of it down, just kind of work my way around, clip little bits of it down. See, it makes a mess though, you can see you get stuff all over the place. But,
That's what you take care of later
yeah.
when you're done with the fun.
And I won't spend the whole hour doing this, but anyway, you can see the idea is you go through and you cut it at random lengths, and you get a clump of weeds that looks like that, and then you can actually, then I just cut that out, the weed section out from the grass mat, and then you can, you can cut the weed part in half or whatever you want to do. Use a bigger brush if you want a longer strip of weeds, and just glue them down to your layout, and bingo, there you go, you're done.
And you got it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a cool idea. So I've been doing that on my layout recently. So now then the other thing is I like to do kind of odd stuff. So
Oh, there's more.
I was at Arby's, and drinking away in my Coke, and I'm
Delicious
thinking,
Arby's.
Hey, I like this, kind of a nice looking little. I like the straw, So anyway, this is just a throwaway plastic straw, but that was, I love making loads for open freight cars. I've showed other loads I've made before. So I got looking at this and I thought, maybe I can make a pipe load out of this. So I thought, well, the ends are kind of fakey looking, so what would I do? So then I thought, I have these. These are
Oh, yeah.
drywall anchors. And I just, I had a bunch of them.
Just for hanging photos and things
for
in the
putting
drywall.
screws in the drywall and stuff. So because I wanted to make kind of a flange in the end, so I realized that I could take this drywall anchor and basically force it into the end of the straw. See, like that. And then I cut the pipe. I actually cut my pipe to 32 scale feet. That's figured to be kind of a common size that fit in a 40-foot gondola car. So anyway, I had one of these for each end. Cut the straw to length, one of these for each end, and then I spray painted them with an oxide color paint, and then put them together and made a load like this.
Very nice.
With just some little scraps of lumber in between, just for spacers for the pipes, And then I used black striping tape that you can get at a hobby store, but of course, see, I had it laying around anyway, so it was basically free for me. So wrapped them around the pipes, so it looks like pipe strapping. And because these straws are so light, I actually developed a hollow spot on the bottom side that you can't see, when it's in the car. And I put a lead tire weight in there, so those pieces of wood you see in there are just pieces of scrap wood that I used to kind of set the weight on. But maybe I should take a picture of that installed into a car and show it to you. But I thought that really worked out pretty good. And guess how much it cost me?
Free.
Nothing! Hey.
Name of the game. I like it.
So anyway, that's what I've been doing lately. Now, let's see. I guess we can get to the pictures.
Yeah.
No. And I had a couple of pictures. I was out messing around with Bill Briggs' layout. I've been involved with this layout for decades. So, and I just had a couple of different photo angles. I was running a different train. And, well, actually, come to think of it, this is the train we used to push the camera car.
Oh.
I think. Or no, maybe not. No, I take that back. This is a reefer train. It wasn't the same train. But anyway, I just thought it was kind of a neat photo angle, so I took a picture. And I just thought it was kind of a cool shot. The timber trestle that goes over the top of the train there leads over to a mine. It's a spur off of the main line. So just to tease you there. And then I had a friend of mine over with his young son who was real excited to see the layout. Well, behind the layout we have a lot of open spaces you don't see from the normal viewing angle, and this is one of them. And so my friend went back there with his young son named Charles, and stood in front of the sunset there in the back, and we took the picture, and I thought that was kind of fun.
That's a great photo.
Okay, now this when the big boy went through Minnesota here a few weeks ago on the way to Duluth.
Oh, that's right.
And I just took this picture. We were waiting for the big boy to come. We went down to Owatonna, Minnesota, and then chased it up into town. But I saw this building, and I just thought it was neat because of the kind of the mixture of styles of roof lines and all that. And the tall, for me, for my era, that tall structure on the right, I wouldn't use the tall silo. I would just use the rest of the building. But I just like the look of it and how nicely weathered it was. And, you know, if I'm out chasing around and I see a building that's, you know, weathered, just has a lot of character to it, I take a picture of it. So I just thought I'd show that to you. That's, anyway, neat building, I thought.
Very cool.
And there it was.
There it
was the
is.
big boy. And, you know, there were mobs of people every place that big boy went. That was really fantastic. And I got to say, I think the Union Pacific Railroad has done a great job of PR. They brought people, not only rail fans, but just people in general down to the track to see it's bringing people down to the railroad. They probably would never go down there otherwise, but so it's really bringing a lot of enthusiasm for railroading in general back. So that is a real piece of machinery.
That's really exciting.
This was just kind of a quick one I threw in there. So I was also at the St. Paul Union Depot for train days, and so I talked my wife into helping me be a host. People got to walk through these. So anyway, she took a picture of me. That's me sitting in the cab of a Sioux Line GP30.
All right.
So I just thought I'd throw that in there. Okay, now we're talking about the RPM meet in St. Louis. Actually, Collinsville, Illinois. It's actually across the river from St. Louis, so it's actually in Illinois, but they call it the St. Louis RPM. So if you can see this model, this is incredible. I mean, I can't even believe how this guy built this thing. But if you look close at all of the minute detail that's involved in building this, it is just phenomenal. You know, with the hood open and the detail of the engine inside and everything, just unbelievable. So now here's another one. This guy likes doing trucks that are associated with railroads, and you know, in the weathering. I mean, the weathering is so perfect. It's just amazing. There's another truck he did, and the dirty. See the doors on the side that are open, there's dirty around the handle where people will be grabbing them with dirty gloves and everything, and so there's a dirty spot around the door handles. And
Very authentic.
Cool stuff. I love these RPM meets. They're the best modelers in the country go to these meets.
Wow.
And, I'm working on going to one in Chicago very soon, so they're all over the country. Just have to look them up. Look at this. I guess I got one more truck here. Look at that. But look at all the stuff in the back end of this pickup truck. And see, it's a railroad vehicle. See, it's on track. So he's got the railroad flanges in the back of the rubber tires there. So we driven on a railroad track. You know, the antennas and the toolbox, and just amazing, amazing. And look at this. Look at this riverboat. And it's a car ferry. It's got a single track down the center, and the guy actually put like a baggage car. I mean, it's a phenomenal amount of work, and you look at all the detailing on the deck and everything. And
oh yeah,
it is just fantastic model work. Here's a little street scene I saw. I just thought it was kind of neat. You know, it's got a lot of aura to it. I mean, I really like when, you know, people put a soul. I like, you know, soul into their work. It's very artistic, and it's just, there's something about the scene that just kind of looks natural. You know, there's some people standing around talking on the sidewalk and everything. So I really like that one. Here's a guy built a Wabash caboose. It's kind of unique with a sloped cupola. They're kind of rare. Various railroads had them, but most of the ends were vertical, and here's the slope cupola version. So that was an O-scale one. Here's another, just a demonstration layout that was there was the, what do they call it, the North Carolina Sipping and Switching Society. And I don't know exactly what they mean by sipping, what that means exactly, but, they have fun anyhow.
Exactly.
That's the main thing, is they have fun. So, and here's another one I took. This is a guy that just built this little diorama. It's just a box car in a warehouse, but it's just got this gritty industrial look to it.
Yeah.
And, they beat up old asphalt, and there's actually some cobblestones in the very front of the picture there with the sidewalk, and it just looks so crusty. I mean, the car itself was real dirty, and just reminds me of things you'd see, especially back, 50 years ago in an industrial part of town. Here's a guy that built a very nice Yosemite Valley steam locomotive. I just thought I'd show that. The Yosemite Valley is kind of a, sort of a rare line. It actually went into Yosemite National Park originally.
Oh, really?
Before the road was there. What else we got? Oh, here's a passenger car with a tremendous interior. I mean, it's got everything inside of there. The guy just did it on his fabulous job. But that's why I love going to these shows. I mean, it inspires me. I mean, I see this stuff, it makes me want to go home and do stuff. And so these guys are, they also do seminars, and so they talk about their modeling talents and all that, explain how they do it, and it's not like a secret or anything. They like to share their talents.
Yeah.
Pretty nice. So here's kind of an overall view of the show, and you can see models on these display tables and all that. It's just one end of the display room there. But I had to show you this. So there's that Sipping and Switching Society. This was the hidden track. It wasn't actually scenic track, but they had all these tracks going around. This is something that would normally be hidden. But look at the track work. They got 3 tracks crossing in one spot there. I mean, this is all custom-built track.
Wow.
Anyway, I just had to take a picture of this because it was wild. But, sipping and switching, that's what can happen.
Sometimes you end up with all of that.
Now, this is where did I take this picture? Oh, this is, no. No, I think this was in St. Louis, too. Anyway, this is, I think it was a diorama in St. Louis. I lost track of the picture. But anyway, it's very just, it's got a lot of aura to it. I mean, you look at it, it's got the cows and the farmhouse in the back and the weedy track and
some birds or chickens.
It's very, very well done.
Lots of detail.
A lot of stuff there. A lot of good detailing. I like that one. Now this one I do know. This was at the Newport Club in St. Paul. This is a farm scene down there, and here again, it's just a lot of aura to it. It's just it's not overdone. You don't want to overdo your scenery, but it's just got a very nice farm kind of mellow aura to it.
Very peaceful.
And this club also, they've preserved a tower, actually a genuine railroad interlocking tower down there that had 40 some levers for activating switches and signals. And it's moved back away from the railroad. The railroad is a little ways over now, but anyway, it's neat that it's preserved. And then they, you can go up there and have tours, and it's part of the club operation, which is pretty neat. You don't see that stuff very much anymore. They had to have rodding along the tracks. Everything was all mechanical, so all this rodding and stuff, just amazing. Oh, okay, and this is, okay, now we're getting a different thing, but this is a friend of mine was doing stucco.
Oh, yes.
And he bought this stuff that's called multicolor textured. And I just took a picture of the can because I thought it was a neat idea. You can actually buy, this is either from Home Depot or place like that, and you can buy that and actually spray it out, and it comes out right out of the can textured for doing a stucco finish. So, I guess that is it. I'm done with pictures.
All right. Well, those are some great photos. You are already sharing some photos in the gallery, so keep them coming. That's really exciting. I did see a couple pop up. While you're doing that, also slide in some questions into the chat box. I'm going to start with a couple that have already come through, and we'll work through as many as we can in the time that we've got left. All right, let's go to the first one right here. This is submitted by @AnthonyTaylorNetwork on Instagram. Doug, will you ever make an HO scale model of the Amtrak P30CH locomotives?
Probably not. No, I should say, I'd say there's many reasons why. First of all, I'm stuck in early to mid 50s.
Oh, okay.
So that leaves Amtrak out.
All right.
and I model the Southern Pacific. So I'm really into more freight. I really do freight operations. I like freight cars and freight operations and all that. I'm really kind of a switching guy. My layout is a switching layout.
Oh, okay.
And then lastly, I model in S scale. So I probably wouldn't do anything in HO. I like looking at models, but I really like working in S.
All right.
So
well, thank you.
Sadly, no.
Leave it to some other people, right?
Yeah, somebody else can do it.
We have a comment actually from Robert. This is in reference to last month's Q&A session.
Did I say something wrong?
I don't think so. I think we're getting some good stuff here. Last month he asked, why are my cars uncoupling often?
Okay.
And with Doug's suggestions, he changed all curve track from 18 degrees to 22 degrees.
Radius.
He had to widen the layout a bit and bought a couple of Katie Mag couplers. And
Perfect.
Robert says, thank you for your suggestions. Everything works fine.
Great. You know, what was his name?
This is Robert.
Robert. You know, it's funny. I had some other number of Q&A questions on the Zendesk lately about that very same thing. And, you know, there can be multiple variables involved there. I mean, your track work has to be good. You can't have kinks or dips in the track because the trains don't like that. And then I always suggest putting metal wheels on my cars. I like metal wheels. They just seem to roll better and act better. And I use metal couplers also. And then finally, I weight them. I weight my cars. Just like I weighted that load I made. I weight everything because I want the stuff to roll good. So I actually add weight, and I actually add mine heavier than, like, say, the typical NMRA specs. Even when I was doing HO, I make them a little bit heavier. And so wonderful. I'm glad that worked, and then I hope it works for these other folks that answered online.
Yes, indeed. It's always great to know that it's helpful, right?
Yeah.
Okay, next question is from David. S scale, it looks like.
Perfect.
David works in. And he asks, should the axle with the square piece at the top be free to come out of the wheel? I feel like that's a very specific question.
Axle with the square piece. So you might be talking about the journal and the side frame. And normally, I mean, you can spread the truck side frames enough so they'll pop out and you have a needle point on the end of the axle.
Okay.
Now, not knowing exactly what brand equipment he has and all that, it could vary, but yeah, I mean, it should pretty much pop out of there.
All right. Quick answer. Ron is asking, how do you prepare your acrylic paints? Do you shake or stir? Do you have any tips?
Well, you know, it depends what I'm doing. If I'm doing weathering, you know, I don't want them completely shaken up. I want them kind of watery. So maybe I'll kind of like half shake them or half stir them a little bit.
Okay.
And then, you know, if you're doing weathering, you don't want it all the same color. So you can take, you can buy these little artist palette things at the art store that have the little cups, you know. And so you can put a little bit of stuff in each cup. And then what I do is I use a little bit of alcohol because when you're weathering, you don't really want the water. You know, you can use wetted water, but you know the alcohol really makes it easier for you know, that it dries quicker and it just kind of breaks down the surface tension. So you can either use wetted water if you want to, or use a little bit of both and try it out. But so you have a little bit of thinner and a little bit of each color, and then you dip back and forth, and then a little paper towel so you can clean the brush off. And so again, it kind of depends. I mean, if you're doing something a solid color, then yeah, you'd probably want to completely shake the bottle or stir it, or you actually, I've seen where you can buy a little deal for a Dremel tool. It's like a little paint paddle, like a paint mixer, little miniature paint mixer. You can stick it in the paint bottle and, you know.
Very mechanical.
Yeah, so it depends what you're doing. But
all right.
Be artistic.
Leon's got the next question. I have some engines that I wish to remove the decals and paint. How do I do this, and which products are good for that?
Well, you know, there used to be that you'd use all these products that were bad for you. You know, you'd breathe in all this bad stuff.
Right.
So actually, there's a new product, Scale Coat 2, and I wish I could think of the actual name of it. Anyway, it's a paint remover. It's kind of a fancy name, but it's a non-toxic paint remover. Anyway, you could look it up, Scale Coat 2 paint remover.
Oh, that
That's
will help.
what I'd recommend.
That will help a lot. Bill's got a fun question. Doug, what is your favorite building on your layout?
Oh, gads. Well, you know, pretty much everything is scratch built, and you know, it's not. Some of my buildings are close to what the originals would be. Others are just kind of off of my top of my head. But I think I'd have to say the Chief Restaurant. And I've ridden around with actual switch crews, and you know, there was you always have to stop for lunch somewhere, and so usually the crew would find a restaurant near the track, and they'd
Right.
stop in the middle of their work and park the train and get off and go eat and come back. And so I kind of like that because I really like to put that kind of human element aura into my layout. And,
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I'd say the chief restaurant. I have a pergola structure out in the back, which they call ramada out west.
Oh,
And so they build these structures, and then they take, in my case, they take dead palm leaves and lay them across the top. That'll be the shade, see?
oh, all right.
So I actually have that behind my layout, or behind the chief restaurant, I mean, on my layout, and then I have little picnic tables in there that I think I bought them from Model Tech, if I remember, little S-scale laser cut picnic tables.
Oh, great. Sounds like a fun
So
building.
that's probably my favorite.
All right. Dale's got a question here. Any suggestions on how to fill the seam between two pieces of styrene that have been butted together?
Well, it depends what you're going to do with them. There's model putty. There's a lot of things you can do. You can even use a material like a medium material, but they have a gel. We've talked about that before. This is more of a liquid, but you can buy a gel material and then and put that in there too. And the nice thing about using the acrylic medium, it dries a little bit flexible.
Oh, right.
So that if whatever you're doing moves around a little bit, you won't crack that seam loose. I mean, I've done everything. I've used joint compound.
Right.
Like when I'm doing roads, I've used joint compound and put it into the crack. So a lot of options there.
Pick and choose. All right. We have a question from a guest 7001.
Okay.
And the question is, do you have any ideas on what I should put back of clear plastic windows on a building without interior scenery so that it doesn't look so barren?
Well, there's a lot of things you can do. I think we've talked about this on the show. I was lucky enough, I have a whole box full of old, what would it be, overexposed, I guess, photographic negatives. So the guy gave me this box to use for windows, and so they're not totally clear.
Yes.
They're a little bit hazy, which is super. Even if, like I light my buildings not because I'm going to use them in the dark, but because even in the daytime there would be lights on. Like I have a little hardware store right across from my chief restaurant, and I light that up so I have counters and things in there. So that's one thing. People have used a clear flat finish and sprayed the backside of the windows with that to give it a little haziness. People have actually used wax paper.
Oh, wax paper,
Put
right?
I mean, it depends on how much, how translucent you want it. But yeah, you could use, a lot of different things. There's probably other kinds of films out there that would let some of the light through, but not too much. I actually have some scale window blinds.
Really?
And it's kind of weird. They're laser cut, but you cut them out and then you kind of twist the edge with your fingers a little bit, and it's like adjusting the blinds. It's a doggonest thing, but it works. I mean, you can actually have window blinds, and there again, if you can put shades or curtains or
that's
something. If you don't
wild.
want to see through the window, you can actually put a detail in there too.
Wow. All right, there's some options there. This is going in a completely different direction. Dave asks, do you have any tips for modeling a swamp? Thanks.
Whoa, well, here's some. If you want some tall grass in your swamp, you can use this. But generally, what I like to do is I build it up in layers with acrylic. I mean, there's different ways you can use epoxy varnish, where you can kind of pour it in all at once. But it's hard to get the right flavor if you're doing it all at once, because you want to add layers of junk in there if you want kind of like mossy sort of stuff in there. So you can build it up, and people, you can take like an old tire and throw it in there and then kind of half bury it in the swamp and all that if you build it up on layers with acrylic. And so you can do, with an acrylic you could do, say, a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch each time, and then as you go you can add acrylic color. And so if you want it, kind of a mossy green or brownish or whatever, or weeds or anything else in there, you could actually do that and then keep filling it up as you go, and so that you can actually see these things down inside of there. And then maybe the top couple of light layers might be just a clear gloss, to give you that wet look, and then, but then you have all that color down below. And generally speaking, you have it, you might see a little bit of lighter color as you get toward the beach, where you could kind of see the bottom a little bit, and then darken it out as you go toward the center, and that'll kind of enhance the feeling of the depth.
Oh, that sounds really good. So lots of layers.
That's what I like to do, and you can just look at it as you go, so you don't have to rush through it.
All right. Douglas is asking, I belong to a chat group where many people tout how great MEK, methyl ethyl ketone, is for gluing styrene models. I have always just used Tester's model cement. What type of glues do you use or recommend for various types of plastic, styrene, resin, kits, etc.?
Well, each glue has its own kind of purpose, and I use super glue for a lot, and for some reason, I got stuck on this Gorilla super glue, not the regular wood type Gorilla glue, but they have it in a little super glue type bottle, and they tout the fact that it has some kind of little rubber, microscopic rubber particles in it, and anyway, it works great for me.
Perfect.
And so I've been using super glue for a lot of things. I use contact cement for stuff. Usually like super glue works best on things that fit together pretty well, and if it's a couple of surfaces that don't match perfectly, you can use contact cement. Use Walther's glue, or you can buy that what is it, 6000 craft glue. It's kind of the same type of thing, kind of more like an old-fashioned clear. It's an old-fashioned clear glue that more of a contact cement. So yeah, it really kind of depends. I really don't use any of that plastic glue anymore. I just kind of steered away from that.
Oh, all right. We've got a couple thoughts here in this next one. This is coming in from Ivan TX48. Why do the O-gauge models cost a lot of money? And also, the Model Train Club here in North Texas is moving. Can you recommend any good ones that he can join? 22 years old, love trains and model trains.
All right. Well, offhand I can't tell you what's out there in North Texas, but I'm sure there's something, like Amarillo. That's probably the biggest town up there in that kind of area, right? So, I would check like Amarillo, maybe Google model railroad clubs in Amarillo and see what comes up. I mean, there's model railroad clubs pretty much everywhere, so.
Yeah. And what about those O-gauge models? Specific reasoning there?
If they're talking scale models, they're just, they're bigger. There's more, obviously, the bigger you go, there's more detail on them, and so it just gets more expensive to make the form for the model to begin with, and so that
starts to add up.
Yeah, that can happen. You're not supposed to keep track of the money in your hobby.
Right.
Just don't keep track of it.
Just keep on going.
Just have fun.
We have another comment coming in. John says, Doug, you're welcome to come shoot North Metro Model Railroad Club in Coon Rapids.
Well, we have mentioned that with the secret weapon. So that's actually on the list. Thanks for mentioning that.
Well, that's really exciting.
We're going to, like I said, this is kind of in the infancy. We did a little bit of practice photography with it, but we want to go out and do that. So I will definitely get a hold of you. We'll work on that here fairly soon.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
All right, Nathan DeLay, viewing on YouTube, asks, do you have a layout and what is it based on?
Oh, well, I've had that question before, but I've always liked the Southern Pacific. It's kind of a bit of a little ironic, but I live in Minnesota, born in Minnesota, never modeled a Minnesota railroad. I'm interested in Minnesota railroads, and I study them, and I look at them, and I real fan them, but I had an uncle out in California. When I was a kid, we drove out on the old, before the freeways, drove all the way out to Oakland, California, went over Donner Pass.
Wow.
And I saw the Southern Pacific going over Donner Pass, and I said, that's for me.
Wow, yes.
Just pretty much like that. So I've always modeled the Southern Pacific. And when I had an HO layout, I modeled the Northern California Redwood Country because I was always fascinated with that. I just love that aura up there. And so I switched over to S scale, and I decided I really liked the orange Pacific Fruit Express refrigerator cars. So I wanted to do something with the refrigerator cars. And so I went to Southern California produce warehouses.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of refrigerator cars and citrus. So my layout is pretty much freelanced. I've taken a lot of ideas from here and there. So it's a 2-foot by 19-foot switching layout in this scale.
Fantastic. All right, we have a question from Edgar Cormier. Neat car for the camera, but I would like to see a white piece of paper under to show off the black trucks that were on the black tabletop.
Well, let me see. How can
Perhaps we can try.
These are just plain old Athearn trucks because the
Here we go.
frame. Would that work like that?
We'll see if we've
The
got a little
frame came
contrast.
from an Athearn 50-foot boxcar. Can you see that well enough? So they're, like I say, they're just regular Athearn freight trucks. And what's left of the frame, because I had to cut it apart. You know, I started out with the entire frame, but it was too tall, so I had to cut the frame apart. So I basically sawed the middle part of the frame out and made the rest of the orange part with plastic and wood. So standard Athearn boxcar frame.
All right, there we go. We've got our next question coming in. I'm into Lionel, and now my girlfriend is into N-scale.
Ooh.
Any advice on what to look out for? Are there DCC-equipped engines with smoke and sound, or any other advice on this scale?
For N-scale?
I
Is that what you're
believe
asking?
it is
So,
N-scale,
For
yes.
N-scale. Well, your girlfriend, you know, the thing is with the N-scale is pretty small. And you can certainly install your own decoders. There's an outfit called TCS that makes decoders for N-scale that you can install yourself. But, you know, if your girlfriend is just getting started, I would say just buy it with everything installed. It's going to be a lot easier. You know, I mean, N-scale is so small. You really have to be careful with what you're doing and very intricate. If you're like a watchmaker or something, it's, you know, I don't want to put down N-scale now, but I mean, I'm just saying it's small, you know. And I'm
Right.
getting older; my eyes aren't what they used to be, and everything. So, you know, S-scale is great for me because it's bigger. But yeah, you can certainly look into decoders and have your girlfriend try one and see if she likes it.
See what happens.
If she's mechanically oriented.
All right. Greg Held is asking, are you aware of any creative uses or recycling of brass HO track? I'd hate to just trash them.
Well, that's pretty much it, recycling. That's pretty much it, sorry. Well, you know, in its day, it was the thing, but, you know, it oxidizes, and the oxide doesn't conduct electricity. And so some wise person decided, what the heck are we making track out of brass for? And they started making it out of nickel silver. And everybody's using nickel silver now,
Right.
and the brass track is just pretty much, you know, old technology. So I'm sorry, yeah, recycling.
Oh, there they go. We have a question coming in from another guest. I've noticed my scenery ground cover is starting to fade and thin. How can I keep this from happening? Will I just have to keep adding more?
Well, you know, you can get a layer of dust. It depends on what's causing it. I mean, having a clean room for your layout is good in many ways. And, you know, in the old days, we had these open basement ceilings with the floor joists, and all the dust was raining down and everything. And we're in a lot cleaner rooms now. And I have recommended to people in the past, you know, if your room is dusty, you can buy one of those freestanding air cleaners. Oh, probably at Home Depot kind of a place. And, you know, let's put that down there, and that'll help keep the room clean. Another thing that can happen is your scenery can fade with the lighting. And I've heard that, now I don't know exactly how this works from a scientific viewpoint, but there's something in fluorescent lights that
Right.
tends to fade things quicker than, like, say, an incandescent light. So it could be a fluorescent lights, too, that are doing it. And, you know, you can always add a little more scenery over the top. I mean, if it's, you know, it looks kind of bare, you can add, well, just add some more color to it here and there. So.
Little touch-ups. All right. Next question is, hi Doug, as a model railroad manufacturer, I can tell Ivan TX48 that the difference in cost is that a greater amount of material is used. So
True.
pretty similar to
True.
what you were
True.
starting to
Okay.
point out. It is also because the dies used to create styrene O-scale are twice as large as those used in HO, and the machinery needed to shoot the models also has to be larger.
There you go.
There it is, a little crowdsourcing on that.
Why don't, what's his name?
This is coming from,
Why don't you send us
no
a
names here.
photograph of one of the dies? That would be pretty cool.
Oh, that would be great. You could add it to the gallery,
and we'll,
perhaps.
We'll put it in the gallery, and or maybe put it on the show next time. But I think that would be, I mean, that's perfect. So if you want to send us a picture, that would be super.
All right, that sounds great. We've got John Choo-Choo93 viewing on YouTube is asking, any advice on scratch building a G-scale roundhouse and turntable?
Ooh, well, now that's big scale, so you don't have to worry about tiny little things, and it's, you know, it certainly can be done. The best thing is to find some plans. real turntable or even model plans that you can convert into G-scale. You know, what I would do is photo enlarge them into, or whatever you have to do, shrink or enlarge them into a correct scale, and then go from there. I mean, the critical part whenever you're doing a turntable is the bearing. The bearing has to be true, and of course, the bigger your scale is, the less critical it is, because you know. But your everything in a roundhouse, everything works off of that center point of that bearing. I mean, even in a real railroad, I mean, everything, the curvature of the roundhouse and everything works off of that one center point. And so that one center point, you have to be locked into that center point. And what I do when I do it, like in, you know, say in HO, I'd use a big beam compass and use that center point, and then draw the front wall of the roundhouse, the back wall of the roundhouse, and then mark off the stalls, depending on what kind of degree spacing you can use in the track. So, yeah, you just need a lot of paper to do a G-scale, but certainly, I mean, from a structure standpoint, or assembly, it's nice because it's big. I mean,
a little more space to work with.
A lot of room to work with. So, super. Send a picture if you get going on that. Send a picture. That'd be great.
We'd love to see it. Doug Spillman has the next question. Would like to know if there's any reason not to clean brass track with something like Brasso, Barkeeper's Friend, or ketchup. Also would like to know if there is an easy way to take the fog out of a clear matte finish coat, like happens when it was sprayed and it was humid.
Well, you know, I don't want you, if you get a fog in sorry I started with the second one.
That's okay.
But if you get a fog in a clear coat, I don't know, it's like that stuff they sell for your car headlight, you know.
Right.
But it never really works, you know. I mean, it just, you're better off starting over with a new. And then give me the first part of the question again.
First one, is there any reason not to clean brass track with something like Brasso or Barkeeper?
Well, you know, you don't want to use, you don't use anything like ketchup or anything like that would be acidic. I mean, that would just be worse. I mean, what I would do is just use like a sanding block in the old days. They had a thing called a Bright Boy, which was an abrasive block, same thing. So you're basically, you're using an abrasive to clean the oxide off of the track. You just have to keep doing it. That's all you can do.
Keep up with it. All right, Hank has a question. I'm new at the Garden Railroad, and I was wondering what types of trains to start out with.
Ooh, well, there's a lot of really good stuff. I mean, I would say, because I do a commercial G-scale, and the U.S. prototype would be USA Trains.
Oh, all right.
And you can look them up online. They're out of Massachusetts. They have a lot of really neat stuff. I use it on these commercial accounts, and it's fun. I mean, if you have the room, there again, if you have the room to do a G-scale, it's really cool. I mean, it's big and massive, you know. So, yeah, send us pictures.
Yes, keep them coming. We have a few questions that are here right now. We'll get to those. If you have any more, we're just here for a few more minutes, so toss them in right away if you want us to get to them today. I'm going to go right next to Al's question. He wants to know, can you give quick steps for laying ballast?
Well, I think I mentioned this before too. Now, depending on what scale you're in, it kind of varies. You know, the bigger scales are a little bit different. But like, say if you're in HO, what I like to do is I do if you're on a elevated roadbed, like a mainline roadbed with bank sides, I like to actually glue the sides down first.
Okay.
You get those manicured in and then glue them down, and then when you're spraying your glue and you're going down at kind of a 45-degree angle, the wetted water and then the glue, you're going down at kind of a 45-degree angle and just kind of forcing that ballast back into the embankment there. And then let that dry.
Okay.
And then I come back and do the center part later, because when you do the center part, you're spraying the water and the glue straight down, and then if the sides aren't glued down, you're basically going to want to wash everything away. So this way the sides are already there and they act like kind of a little barrier to keep the center in place.
Right.
That makes sense. So that's what I do, and I just you know, I'm kind of old-fashioned. I do it with my fingers and kind of manicure it down and just work my way along and take my time.
Taking your time is always a good option. Last question for now, unless anyone else wants to slide any of them in. Dave Robinson is asking, looking to add a second level for a mining town for my layout. Any suggestions on where to get buildings and decor for the 50s era?
Hey, that's the kind of era I like. Well, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Depending on it's like Colorado mining or, you know, mountainous kind of stuff, or wherever you're going to be. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. There's books on real railroading from everywhere. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of reference materials out there and just look at the real stuff and get an idea. And a lot of time you have to, force the perspective a little bit, shrink it down to make it work. But you can get the general feel of the operation. So
Wonderful.
just do a little research. You'll figure it out.
We did get another question in here. Doug, you said you work in N scale? Why?
No.
It's S scale, right?
Yes.
S scale. But why did you choose S scale then?
Well, I had HO for decades, and I was just kind of looking for a change. And I was actually doing work for a friend of mine who had an S scale lab, and I got looking at it, and I thought, gee, I kind of like the bigger you get, the more mass you have. It's kind of, it's easier to work on as you get older, and your eyes aren't as good as they used to be, and all those kind of things. The bigger they are, the more detail you can put on them, and I got carried away with S. I just thought it was a good compromise between HO and then O. I mean, O is big. If you're going to do O scale, you need a pretty big room.
Okay.
So S is a good compromise for me, and I like switching, so I don't need a huge layout.
Not a question, but a little tip came in that I want to share. Indian Head Valley Railroad, viewing on YouTube, added in, I have a bit of brass track and found that a Walther's track cleaning car works very well.
Well, yeah, you can do that. Ribbon Rail made one that was really heavy that was kind of that same idea with abrasive, and yeah, sure. A lot of ways you can do it, but I would, if you can, I would just get away from brass. I think it's just too much maintenance. I would get the nickel silver if you can.
All right, I'm going to refresh and see if anything else came in while I'm doing that. Just a reminder, we do have that new gallery that I have seen some photos popping in on. The Model Railroad Academy Community Layout Gallery. It is fresh, it is new. Go ahead and click down through if you're watching on Facebook. Again, that link is in the description. If you're watching on the website, it's right below your chat box. You can pop your photos into there and share them with the community. Also, we've got our social media on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter. You can find us there. And of course, we'll be back with another Track Talk Live soon. Doug, you ready to sign off?
Well, thank you. Send in your questions and your comments, and we're looking forward to our next show.
Absolutely. Until then, we'll see ya.